Victoria, welcome to the Space Plus podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, Angelica. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I always look at your Instagram and your feed is just very empowering, you know. You inspire me to wake up and just be an amazing person. Just seeing another Kenyan person doing what you're doing is just very inspiring.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's an honor that you think of me in that way, and you truly made my day. The day that you reached out and you're like, "Hey, I want to do this," I was so excited, and I'm glad that you finally gotten the chance to do this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
totally, totally. One thing about me is that if I like what someone is doing, I will reach out to them and just gas them up because we need more of people like you in this world, you know, to just inspire people to be the best versions of themselves, you know.
Yeah, that's the spirit. That's the spirit.
Yeah. So the first question is, Victoria, what is the definition of quality education?
Okay, so for me, I would say quality education is the kind of education that will find you as an individual. It will find you where you are. It will empower you with skills, knowledge, relevant connections to be the best version of you. And it will also help you define, your goals, your ambition, you know, all of that. And my emphasis on, finding you where you are is, I believe, like every single person deserve equal opportunity to access to education, and that this education should not just be made to fit a certain audience. It should find you where you are, help you identify your weakness and strength, help you work through it, help you define your goals better, help you know how you can be of use to this world, and help you, design a clear path towards that, whether it means connecting you with the right people, whether it means empowering you with the right knowledge, the right skills, whether it means knowing a certain language that will be vital to that. That's what I envision as quality education.
Right. And now, based off of the education, I'm guessing we've both received H44 education. Do you feel like it has encapsulated what you've defined as the quality education?
Um, in some sense, I would say yes. And in another, I would disagree. I would say yes because I would remember I went to a village school for my early education, from preschool to about class 5. And one thing about this school is most of the students did not know how to speak English, did not know how to speak Swahili. And so by us going to this school, it was like introduction to this language, right? We don't speak it at home. And we would find that most of the teachers will try and always be considerate of the fact that most students don't know English or don't know Swahili. And so even as they taught, they taught subjects like science or social studies, they will, be mindful enough to interpret it at times in the local language. And so at the back of your mind, as I'm thinking of, oh, how do you call a river? How do you call a river, or like what is the definition of a river? I can kind of connect it with whatever I already know, which is like the local language. And that, an education system that is aware of such barriers and acknowledges it and works together with the people to empower them as they grow is what I think, is one way that I believe the 844 system does to kind of empower students. On a different note, when I moved to Nairobi, and I got admitted into this private school, and everybody was speaking Swahili, everybody was fluent in English, people were confident, and these were things that I wasn't used to. Like the village school, like if you compare the kind of priorities people have, the time schedule, everything is so different. And I remember having a difficult time integrating in terms of like finding friends, in terms of speaking fluent Swahili, speaking fluent English. And the teachers were very mindful of this. They would reach out and they'd be like, hey, I understand that you're not, at the same level as these students. Feel free to come for extra education. Tuition. Feel free to do extra work and bring it to me to mark and give you feedback. And to date, I believe like a big part of me being how I am, like being able to confidently, be in spaces and occupy that position that I am, being able to confidently speak my mind, has been contributed by having such people who are there to encourage me and acknowledge my presence, even though I was, in some sense, in a marginalized position. But as I'm thinking about my secondary education, I would say to some sense it wasn't the best in terms of finding somebody where they are and empowering them to grow. Because I remember that like one bit of it was struggling with math, and this was like, it was kind of ironic to my teachers, especially because I used to do so well. I would like top in English, top in geography, top in all these subjects, but when it came to math particular, I was doing so bad. And my teachers would be like, why are you doing, like, why are you not performing? It's because you're not studying, it's because you don't like these subjects. I'm telling you, you're going to regret. And so a big part of it kind of was more or less of on threats, and like, you need to work more, you need to work more, you need to work more, without, that kind of sensitivity to acknowledge that I was actually doing something. And I know that most of my, or some of my classmates also related to this, because there were students who were time takers. Like, for them to understand concept, they needed more time, they needed extra sort of time with the teachers. They needed more group discussions to be at the same level as some of of the other students who are doing so well were doing. And I think, as much as the school tried in a way to kind of own up to that, it was more or less like benefiting people who had the courage to take that personal initiative to go to a teacher and say, hey, I want to I need help, or hey, I'm coming in for consultation. But um and yeah, so I think that's how I would explain it. To some sense, it is finding people where they are, and it's helping. But as time progresses, I think there's a lot of inequality that is growing, and a lot of blame, and a lot of you're not working, and you should be doing better, and without the acknowledgement of like the personhood of the student, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And you've talked about, first of all, okay, you've talked about a lot of things, and I want to like go step by step. So first of all, just tying to the last part that you said, taking initiative, going for consultation. Do you feel like, first of all, we've been nurtured to like take initiative and just like go out of our way to seek that knowledge that we want to find? Because since I transitioned to come here in Colombia, I feel like most people are like
Yeah.
outgoing, like they're going to
Mhm.
take initiative, they're going to like do what is required of them, they're going to network. And I feel like that was something that was not nurtured in us as Kenyan students, to like go out there, reach out to your teachers, going out there to reach out even to like big folks, to just like, if you want something, you're going to get it. So how best can you like encourage someone who is in that Kenyan education system, be it in high school or in primary school or in university, to show them that actually you can take initiative and you can like make yourself grow and not be scared?
Um, I would say the first thing I would say to any student is to always be selfish. And by selfish, I don't mean like, just think about yourself, but that's exactly what I mean. Think about yourself. When you feel like, oh, how is this teacher gonna perceive me by, bothering them, or like showing up to their office hours, or doing all of this, I want you to think about the reason why you're doing that. It's for you. It's because you have acknowledged that you have a gap that you need to fill. And just remind yourself and push yourself, and push yourself, go and talk to these people. The worst they can say is no. And which, if they say no, look for a different alternative. I would say that helped me a lot, especially with my math. My class teacher, even though like he was like, "Oh, you need to do better and you need to do this," I would walk to him and say, "Hey, today we learned about trigonometry, yeah." And to be honest, I got like a quarter of whatever you taught. Is it okay if we just sit down and like redo this again? And he will take his time and he will explain. And the good thing is, I wasn't the only one who did not understand. And so when I would come to class, another classmate would be like, "Hey, Victoria, did you understand this by any chance?" I'd be like, "Yes, perfectly. Now this is my opportunity now, to kind of practice that, right?" And so at times it's just that acknowledgement that you need to better yourself, and that what people are gonna think about you shouldn't be a barrier. Shouldn't be a barrier from preventing you to go for these opportunities. And another thing is just being aware that by knowing this knowledge, or by taking that step of courage to ask for help, you're placing yourself in a position that if another person needs help and they don't have that courage to go and ask, they can come and talk to you. So yeah, I would say, just keep that in mind, that you're doing this for yourself. And then the second thing is, teachers also at times love it when when you show up, and when you acknowledge that you are willing to to improve. Most of them will tend to support you, and most of them will tend to even give you extra advice. They'll tell you what to read, what kind of books you should use, and everything. I have never in my life met a teacher that will shun me often be like, no, you're disturbing me or anything. As long as you're respectful of their time, and you're also aware of their communication style, then it's like it's just a matter of just gathering the courage, and like, you know I know like most of them tend to be authoritative, and at times, they kind of make us fear them, but just see them beyond that fear, see them beyond that authoritative figure. They're there to support your growth. They're there to ensure that as you leave school, you are empowered enough in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, and also in terms of networks. They do know people who can help you, yeah. And then the other side of it will be on the teacher's side. Yes, I used to go for a lot of consultation, but to be honest, I never went for consultation for all classes. There were teachers, even though I'm insisting that you should overcome this fear and talk to them, the teachers who I never dared to step into their office because of the stories I had heard. Somebody going to ask a question, and along the way, he notices a problem with your uniform or something, like you end up getting into trouble. And I was like, I'm not taking the risk, right? And so, in such cases, I would turn to my classmates, right? There's normally somebody in your space that knows how to do something, or like has a solution or a recommendation how you can work on a problem. So I used to really take advantage of my classmates, and I had a very artful. Like I was in art class. They were amazing, like in terms of group work, in terms of supporting one another, in terms of just that collectivistic sort of communal sort of living. I took advantage of that a lot. So yeah, and so in relation to that, I would really recommend for teachers to be a little bit intentional. It's okay for you to affirm this. I am the person who is teaching you, and you're the person who should be receiving this knowledge, and you shouldn't question me. You should always show me respect, fear me, and everything. At times it's okay to calm down and say, hey, guys, it's not easy. Like, whatever we are learning, it's not easy. Some of you will understand, some of you won't, some of you will struggle with it, and that's okay. If you find yourself in such a circumstance, do this, do this, do this, do this. That constant reminder of like remind and acknowledgement of students, especially those who are struggling in the class, makes them to be to feel seen, and to feel appreciated, and to feel encouraged to do better. So for our teachers, that is something you can help. It won't hurt the respect that students have for you if you just show a little bit of humanity towards them.
Yeah, and I feel like the underlying issue under all this is the fear of perception. I don't know why, but as collective human beings, both in Kenya and here in the US, there's a sense in which we fear the way other people will perceive us. And one
Mm-hmm.
important thing I learned is that what other people think of you, first of all, you have no control of like what another person thinks of you. And the other thing is that you only owe like an explanation to yourself. So it's all about what you think about yourself. It's all about what I think about myself. So if I'm in a good place with myself, it doesn't matter what someone else thinks. And I feel like that is what people fail to understand. And what they try to do is they try to impress the crowd,
Yeah.
impress these other people, and forget, what they have to gain from that setup where they're in. So, how can we grow out of this fear of perception and this fear of judgment of other people?
That's a very beautiful question, Angelica. To be honest, I think different people will take different routes, right? Fear, like, we are all human beings, right? It's okay to show up to spaces and feel like, oh my God, there's like so many eyes looking at me. What am I gonna do? Like, am I dressed well? Am I talking well? Oh, should I raise my hands or not? Is that gonna be like overconfident of me and everything? And it's okay that in that moment you are taking, you're acknowledging all these feelings, right? But whatever you do with those feelings, with those thoughts, is what matters, right? Whenever I get, because I still get those feelings, I do show up to spaces and I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out, or like, oh my God, how did I answer that question? Was I confident enough? Did I communicate, my dream well? Or, oh my God, I just went for this and this and this. Does this professor now think I'm like less deserving to be in their class and everything? But after that's a that sort of event, or that sort of interaction, I take time and I just revisit everything. I'm like, okay, These are thoughts that are actually going through my mind, but I'm the one who is telling them to myself. Literally, nobody has walked to me and told me, Victoria, you're not speaking well. Or, oh, Victoria, your response to me was bad. Or, oh, Victoria, I think that you're less deserving. They're all thoughts that are, I'm trying to think for these people. And in most cases, literally, us being in such spaces, people won't even notice and they won't even like take their time to actually pass their judgment on you. So the judgments that we are putting are coming, like it's coming from us. It's coming from our own like insecurities, our own fears and everything. So most of the work will still depend on you. It's upon you to like, breathe in, breathe out and say, hey, I prepared for this. Hey, I'm doing this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reasons. Hey, these are the outcomes that I intend to get out of this, right? And hey, if they have not spoken it, it means it's not true. Unless I see it, unless they say it, it's all just my imagination, right? And so just kind of acknowledge that these are all your thoughts and just kind of talk yourself, like positively talk yourself into believing that, in real sense, how do I perceive myself? Am I dressed well? Am I talking well? Am I speaking my mind well? Am I doing the right thing by reaching out? Yes, 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 yes. So I'm going to do this, period. And it's going to take a lot of consistency, right? It's not going to be something that will just, you know, happen once and that's it. No, it will take you doing it the first time and you're like, okay, I did it my best. Tomorrow we try again and we do it better. And then with time, your psychology, your body, your soul, your spirit comes into into I would say into terms and into peace with the fact that you're pushing yourself outside your boundaries, and that will be your new norm. It will be now okay, and then you'll grow into another level. Maybe this was like just class level. Now you'll have to go into professional sort of level where you have to kind of also show yourself in in your company or like where you work or where you're interning and everything. And then from there it will just move into something. And so it's just a constant sort of growth that you just need to be self-aware, reflect on it, come up with like strategies, and then always remind yourself that the thoughts, the reasons behind all of this, they are all pointing back onto me. So it's just upon me to, to know how I'm going to respond in this situation. And as always, the reference points should be, why am I doing this in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah, and I also actually noted that down, that this whole like growth is a continuous process. So like it's not, you're not going to be reaching eudaimonia one day and be like at this, high level black belt type of place where like yourself and you don't care about how other people perceive you. It's a continuous process, and as you've said, you're going to be in this like school setting, then you grow from that and you go to this professional setting, then you realize, oh wait, now I have to like reacquaint myself with this place and learn from that. But one thing that really really resonated with me was that people don't really care about like how, oh, you could be thinking, oh, I embarrassed myself, something like that, but in all honesty, no one really cares. Like people are busy thinking about themselves
Yeah.
and thinking about how their lives went to care about what you are doing. So if you don't like go out of your way, go out of your comfort zone, go out of like, and do what you want, you're like wasting time because you're caring about what someone else is saying. Who, like, that person does not even like think about when they're going to sleep. They're not even thinking about you when they're sleeping.
I know.
Yeah, so it's actually really mind-boggling to like see how people like care about what people think about them and not being able to take that extra step to just do what they can do to pursue their passion, just because like they care about the fear of perception. And
Hmm.
Lupita Nyong'o, there was this interview that she had with Trevor Noah, and she was talking about how when she transitioned from like Kenya and she was going to Yale, she was going to audition to be
Hmm.
an actor. And over there, like people, they were like, I don't know how I look like, I look so dumb, something like that. And Lupita was like, I came all the way from Kenya, you know? I came all the way from Kenya,
Yeah.
all those miles. I went through the whole of the Atlantic to come here and
Hmm.
like be scared about what people are thinking about me. And she was like, hell no. Hell no.
Can
No,
never be me.
can never be me, because like you can only imagine how much for us to get
Hmm.
here, that is us like rejecting to go to an amazing school like UON. That
Hmm.
is us rejecting to like people will be saying, oh, you can stay in Kenya, it doesn't really matter, but you're like, no, I want to like get the best type of education. And like you going out of your way over there and then just quitting and caring about people's perception, it doesn't make so much sense.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
agree. I do agree for sure. I think it's very important also at times to kind of just remind yourself where you've come from. Like, oh, I have been in a similar situation and like I made it. If I was able to do that, this is also possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, as you've said, getting into a room and sometimes you feel like you're unwelcome, like you start fretting. I feel like that's the best position for me these days. I seek that feeling, like I seek that
Hmm.
challenge of like just being scared and just like challenging myself to go to that room, and I'm scared because I know that I'm out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday, I think, or the day before yesterday. The day before yesterday, we were supposed to, like, there was this model UN thing going on in school, and we were told that you have to register if you want to like attend a mission to like a certain country. You register and you go to it. So I registered to go to a mission in Ireland. Like the mission, it's like the embassy for Ireland in New York.
Hmm.
So I'm there, like I'm registered, and I thought that we would like maybe get transportation. We'd go as a group, as students, and like
Right.
go there. They tell us everything that we're supposed to do. But in the morning, I open the email and I see that they've told us, okay, you're going to go there by yourself, and then you're going to meet, like, because like it's a model United Nation for high school students. So we
Hmm.
go there as like I'm a university student, so I go there and I meet the students over there. Like I'm supposed to leave Columbia University and go to the embassy of or to the mission of Ireland and say, hey guys, I'm here and I'm supposed to meet students from this place. And I was like, okay, you
Hold
guys
on,
did
hold
not
on.
hold on. You guys did not prepare me for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on my bed and I was contemplating, like
Hmm.
should I go? It's going to be hard trying to like move all the way to like
Hmm.
the mission place. I don't know where it's at.
Yeah.
I'll have to take the train. That like kind of friction of taking the train and how like taking the train is a whole headache in itself. Then I also
Hmm.
had to take a bus, and I was like, okay, just going to figure this out. I took an Uber. So it can be easier. Then I got there, and it was so nice. I had
Yeah.
an opportunity to like converse with the students, with their teachers. It was just so amazing. And if I hadn't taken that step to just like
Hmm.
go out of my comfort zone and just face that ice and that barrier, I wouldn't have gotten that amazing opportunity to just meet amazing students.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful for like people like you who are just out there just showing us, that
Thank
it's
you.
it's possible to like be this best version of yourselves and just like going out there and sharing your story. That would be a
Yeah.
good segue to like authentic storytelling and the
Yeah.
power of storytelling in
Yeah.
your Instagram feed. When you post a story, unlike me, when I post a story for me, I usually have like cool captions, it's giving like this cool rapper type of people. But for
Yeah.
you, like give us a touching story. And when I was preparing for this interview, I was going through the things that you wrote, and it was just so inspiring. And I just love how you just like, take us through the post and make us know the context. So, what does it mean to you, authentic storytelling and the power of a story?
I think one of the things that I really know, acknowledge, and respect is that we are all human beings, right? And so, in one way or another, our experiences are interconnected, right? Not everybody is born in Kenya. Not everybody knows what it means to be a first generation college student. But everybody knows what it means to be raised in a slum setup and everything. But in some sense, we have been in situations of hardship. We have been in situations where parents were not there for us, and we had to like make decisions for ourselves. We have been in situations, where we were questioning why we are even existing, questioning how, whether or not you're going to make it. And so I believe the best way to connect with another human being is to just be truthful and share, your emotions, share your decisions, why you made them, the people you met, people, things that are in one way, I would say, not really innate, but I would say, like that are attached to you in some sense, right? And so that's the kind of direction that I normally take to. I know people are like, oh, you should write a book. I will write a book. God willing, yeah, we are getting there. We are getting there. But before that, I know I have a certain audience, and this audience are people around me. Definitely, they're just my friends. There's no I will walk up to like somebody be like, hey, do you know that I was one day I had this sister and I told her this. It will be so awkward, right? But if during their time they're scrolling, tarara, and they see this, they're like, oh my god, this is a part of Victoria that I didn't know, right? And they're like, oh, so actually people like her also go through this. It kind of speaks a lot, right? And that's the kind of reaction that I normally hope to get from people. If you kind of read through my stories, I would say like they're more or less like sad, not really sad, but like there's just a lot of like deep emotions to some sense attached to them. And that's exactly what I want people to understand, because people will see like, oh, I went for a conference and I was speaking, or oh, I just got this job and I'm doing so well, or oh, I'm like the president of this club, and they're like, oh my gosh, she's doing amazing. But the details, the finer details of it, the emotions, the pain, and and all of this, like you never see them in the limelight. And so that's one thing that I was really hoping to kind of communicate to people, that hey, I'm all of that. And in addition to that, a big chunk of it is this girl who is like worrying about this girl who cares about friendship, this girl who cares about this sort of issues, these girls who sees people this way, who appreciate people for coming together and everything. And then it came like through doing that, I genuinely just started posting and people were giving feedback. They're like, oh, I love this, oh, this is amazing. So I was like, oh, nice. So every single time that I feel um kind of empowered and I feel motivated to share something, let me go ahead and share them. And to be honest, I never even planned for this post, and that's why you'll see even some of the photos I recycled, some of them I took long time ago, but I will still post them as long as they have some sort of connection. My main goal is normally for somebody to read this and in one way be inspired, to kind of work on themselves, to kind of see the ways in which they can continue believing in themselves and doing great stuff. And then in terms of authenticity, I would say, as always, me, the one thing that guides me, I ask myself, why am I doing this? Like, why am I posting this story, right? And if it's all about, oh, I want people to perceive me this way, then that is something I don't want to do, right? I do these things as much as I post for people to connect with my story, right? I also post it for myself as a way of self-reflecting. These are things that I've written somewhere or I've thought about, and I'm like, this is worth sharing, right? Because number one, it will tell people about what's going in my mind, these details of my life that I couldn't just walk and tell them, and so I will go ahead and do that. And so authenticity comes with just understanding, number one, why am I telling this story, right? What's the best way to tell it? And then is, if I was to read this, if I was to read this about myself, would I say that this is exactly what I wanted people to hear? Is this exactly what happened? What's the implication like on the people who will like listen to this? Are they gonna be feel encouraged? Are they gonna go and pursue their passion or like their goals with much rigor? Are they going to like feel compassionate to give and support other people in their environment? Are they gonna feel intrigued about where I come from and want to visit? That sort of thing. And to be honest, one thing, I know I'm talking so much, but one thing, it's funny enough that I never realized just how many people see these stories. I've been working on campus and I would meet somebody for the first time and be like, hi, oh, my name is Victoria, nice to meet you. She's like, oh, I know you. I read your Instagram post, and like, oh my God, continue doing that. I love your stories. And I'm like, oh, wow. So you guys actually see them, and, it means that, in one way or another, a person getting to connect with you in a way that allows them to see these other details of you will make even human interactions better. Like, you don't have to start from from square zero. They already know who you are, what kind of values you hold true to you, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about how like you say in a way that your stories are like sad and stuff. I feel like it's not really sad. I feel like it's you being vulnerable, and for someone to establish a relationship with someone, like you have to show your vulnerable side and show someone, I guess, your scars, and that is something hard, most especially like for us as Africans. We don't
Yeah.
like showing our vulnerabilities. So, like, how do you encourage someone if they want to, first of all, express their emotions? Because we were having this conversation with one of like my friends here in Colombia, and we were saying how, in America, people are like the rates of depression are high and stuff like that. And we
Yeah.
were like, no, it's just because in Africa we just don't have the data, So it's like in Africa, like we are happy and we're just doing our stuff. Maybe we just don't have the data to just record what is going on in the ground. And I
Yeah.
feel like for us, what can cause us to be isolated from the world is us not knowing how to be vulnerable to our loved ones.
Yeah.
So, how can us be, vulnerable to our loved ones, just express our emotions and, pour ourselves out to people that we love?
Thank you so much. Like, you literally just reminded me about the reason why I did the last post that I did. And I was talking about how I feel like my cup is like overflowing. There's a lot of, a lot of empathy that a lot of experiences, good, bad, that I've taken in and I've really, 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 held deep in my heart. But at the same time, I'm not doing the same to other people. Like, I'm not letting my friends know about what I'm going through and everything. And when I was writing that post, actually, it was coming from, I don't know whether I was crying that day, I don't know, but I feel like it was coming from a really, 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 really deep feeling, because number one, I was having a lot of struggles academically. Um, it could have been final season or post final season, but I wasn't done with my finals either way. And I was feeling like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, what is happening? This is not me. Okay, what am I supposed to do? Okay, I'm at this point. I know my friends are also busy with their class assignments. I don't want to add to their trouble. And it was just a lot of, oh my God, this is happening and I don't know how to navigate it. But at the same time, I don't want to add on to another person's, problem. And I was sharing with my friend later on that this is what I was experiencing during this, fall final season. She was like, oh my God, Victoria, I want you to think about the days when I called you 3 a.m. in the night and we were crying together, because so it so happened I did not get an opportunity, or the day that I got into trouble with my professor and you showed up, like you literally showed up. That is the essence of friendship. That's what me and you are for. We are not just to say hello, hi, how are you doing? No, it's for us to be there in, situations where, like, you feel like you're alone. I come and, kind of just fit in that space and fill that blank space, right? In situations where you need somebody to give your second thought, I'm there to be that second thought. And that's what true friendship, kind of is. And so it kind of just opened my mind, and I was like, yeah, that's so true. And I remember a story, my I think it's Pastor Joshua Salman. I can't remember where I got it from, but somebody was sharing a story of how, back at home, we are free to go and knock on the neighbor's door and be like, hey, we don't have chumvi, like the salt. We don't have salt. Do you guys mind, just giving us a little bit of salt for today, right? And somebody will feel, they will feel okay, and like the next time you don't have like a matchbox or something like that, you can walk and, do the same. And so you find like this sort of comfortability for asking, and, asking and asking, comes from that point of view that, hey, there's some sort of mutuality. Like, I'm not just asking, like I'm not a parasite, like I'm not just the one who is like constantly asking for help, but this person can also rely on me, when they have trouble. And so it just kind of dawned on me that, yes, these friends of mine who are actually reaching out to tell me, Victoria, I need your help this way. So, Victoria, pray for me. This and this is happening. Victoria, I can't afford school fees and we need to figure out a plan. It could actually build our friendship better if I could also be like, hey, Mildred, this and this just happened. How are we going to do? What are we going to do right now? Mildred, I need you to pray for me. This is also happening. And so in that way, they don't feel like, they're just the ones who are like, kind of directing their problems at you. It's more or less like a friendship, a mutual friendship that people can benefit from. And so in terms of vulnerability, I think when we were kids, right? Like growing up, because some of our friends are people who like we knew from, childhood. If you remember how our interactions used to be, like we would never care about what we would say. If you did not like a certain person in the friend group, you'd be like, no, me, I don't want that person here. And like you don't be afraid to say it. When you get hurt, you like cry, 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 and like your people will be there to, kind of comfort you. When you buy something, you'll feel free to share and everything. And so I would say, like, I think a good part is just reminding yourself of those, sort of experiences that you friendship experiences that you had, and kind of just allowing yourself to be a child again, right? It's not fair to you, it's not fair to your friends that you're bottling things up, right? It's okay to pour out, because you're just speaking generally, you're just telling them, guys, this is what is happening, keeping them in the know of what is happening. It's justice to yourself, it is justice to themselves. And so just kind of constantly remind yourself that, hey, if I reach out, I will be building our friendship, because there will be that sense of mutuality. And secondly, this is what is fair, this is what friendship is actually, meant to be. And thinking of David and Jonathan, you even see how their interaction was. These people helped one another in one way or another. And so that sort of friendship, and not only friendship but also like relationship with family members, is what we ought to be always like aiming for. And at times I would say people also appreciate seeing this, how would I say it? Like this difficult side of us, like these struggles of our own. Because I don't know if you have listened to Chimamanda's, I think it was a talk, yeah, on the dangers of a single story. And it was
Yeah.
specifically or like in context to like the single story that Africa has, right?
I
But
actually
also,
wrote an essay about that in my college application.
okay.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what you're talking about. But
Hmm.
like just kind of borrowing from that, I would say that we human beings we should always also be aware that at times we tend to pass single stories about ourselves, right? And so if I come to your Instagram, like this somebody like my classmate, right? Came to my Instagram, she's like, "Oh, I want to see what people are up to," right? And maybe this is somebody who is struggling at this point in life. Maybe they have lost direction in terms of education, in terms of profession, they're not doing so well, maybe spiritually, mental health wise. And they come into my Instagram and everything that they see is, oh my God, I'm flourishing, I'm flying, I'm getting here, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. They're like, oh my God, I need to get my life together. Da, 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 da. And there'll be this pressure to kind of try, to match up to my energy. But in real sense, I was crying because I wasn't able to submit an assignment on time. And this is something that, by people knowing it's part and parcel of me as a human being, it helps humanize, our experiences and our interaction with people. So I would encourage you guys to do yourself the favor, do yourself the justice by reaching out to your friends. Share when you feel you're overwhelmed, pour into their cup because I know they'll be willing to receive. Yeah.
And I feel like it also ties back to the fear of perception as well, because sometimes we approach this person and we already like, it's like we're doing mental calculations in our head, just like trying to, you know, cater
Mm-hmm.
to what they think and try to tell them what we think will make them happy. And
Mm-hmm.
by doing that, we are compromising our authentic selves. So just showing up to this friendship, if you want to be a friend with someone, or if you're interacting with someone at the most basic level, just first of all, just be a good listener and don't shy away from just showing them your authentic self, because we try to be very curated and try to be very normal, whatever normal means,
Yeah.
to the extent that we compromise our authenticity.
Yeah, for
So I
sure.
would like to know, like, how would you compare you making friends in the States and you making friends in Kenya, and how that paradigm has been?
Oh my God, that's a really good question. To be honest, there's like a really stark difference in terms of like how these friendships are made and how they are sustained. I think like one like a good starting point was like back at home, like once we're in a class, once we're in a space and we are in this together, definitely we have clicked in one way or another. I'm adding you to my friends group, right? Like I could like text you without being like, hello, how are you doing? Like just go straight to the point, right? I would call you and be like, hey, tara, tara, all of these are happening, tara, tara, and I would feel like free to do that. Here, there's a little bit of formality, which to some sense is not bad, but it's something that I'm learning that I would connect with somebody maybe in a class and it would be like, hi, I was wondering whether we could have coffee together sometime, and you will sit over coffee and like be like, yeah, I come from home, I have this sisters, I have these brothers, this is what I care about, this is my major, this is what I'm involved in on campus. And then the next time, like, yeah, we should definitely grab lunch sometime. And, it's just a cycle of, hey, let's create time, let's sit and, talk. And back at home, I feel like there's just less of that formality. Like, you just click and, like, right then, you guys are just chatting like normal, sending each other memes, showing up to each other's, like, celebration. And there isn't this pressure, like, am I being too inconsiderate, or oh my God, did I just sound like too um overwhelming, like am I like taking this comfortability level to another level? Like these are thoughts that I never had with like my friendships back at home, but here I have thought about that several times. Like before I send a message, I'm like, does this like come out the way I want it to come out, right? And so yeah, and to some sense it might speak like I'm being overly like self-conscious, but in real sense it means something because it's feedback that we've gotten to like from people. They're like, oh, I have friends. It will come like as a story. I have friends who are like, they're very inconsiderate. They just text me and be like, I'm coming to your room. And I'm like, oh, so we shouldn't be doing that actually. And like, so it's like a learning process for me, but like there's a complete shift in terms of how I'm making friends here and how those friendships sort of interactions are. And then I also feel like back at home, I would place almost all my friends in like a similar sort of basket. As much as there are people who are like super close, but like I wouldn't like be like, hey, I only reach out to this friend when I'm in need of like academic stuff. I only reach out to this friend when I'm in need like of like tarara tarara, or like when we are going out, or when and like I feel like back here, like right here, I feel like that not really pressure, but I feel it's very important that not all your friends are your friends in every circumstance. So there are things that you should, and there are things you shouldn't share with them. And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That is so true. And I was having a conversation with an amazing person called Natasha. She's from Germany though, and she said the same thing. Where like over here, it is like you have to really plan. The days you hang out. You have to really like set a specific date. While in Kenya, it was very spontaneous. Where you're like, "Hey, are you at home right now? Okay, we're coming." Or they even tell you that they're here when they're
Yeah,
like
like
at your
come to
gate.
open the gates.
Yeah. So it's actually pretty interesting. And my experience was, because I'm a very like people don't really can't usually tell in a formal setting, but I love cracking jokes like so much, and I like dark humor. So I had to draw the line when I came like to the US because apparently when you tell someone dark humor and you're not like in a very close relationship with them, they would think that you're insulting them. So yeah,
Hmm.
I had to be like, oh wait, so over here you have to be careful. You don't just have to like
Yeah.
joke with everyone because some people will be actually offended by that. So yeah, it's been also me like learning the environment and understanding, okay, this cultural like context for me to crack my jokes may not be appropriate for like me to just like tell them any dark humor type of joke that is funny to me. Yeah, and in your Instagram I quoted some things. So you talked about identity
Oh,
and you talked about how fluid it is, and you're reading a book called, okay, I don't know if I can read my handwriting, but it was a book on race interactions. So this aspect is all about performance and how as a human being sometimes when you get out it's like we are performing. And Robert Greene also talked about this in
mm,
one of his interviews that I was listening to. So I'm wondering, where do we draw the line between like being authentic to our identity and going out in a performative type of way? Because personally for me, when I'm in a different setting, it's like
yeah,
I'm performing,
yeah,
like
yeah,
when like it's like one of my professor who was teaching us physics and reality, like when he was teaching us physics and reality, it was theatrical and it was fascinating because he would like go all out and just dramatize the whole thing, and he really made like quantum mechanics and general
yeah.
relativity very interesting. And I
Mm-hmm.
really believe in the power of like performative art and performing when it's necessary. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like performance could mesh into our authentic self and our personal self too much that we fail to separate them. So like how do we draw the line between like identity and its fluidity and the
Mm-hmm.
performance aspect that is sometimes necessary to pass across an information?
Yeah, I believe that's a really great question. And I would say I don't believe that there's need for us to actually draw a line. Like be like, at this point I'm not performing, or at this point I'm not compromising my identity, or whatsoever thing. And like I feel like when I began that thing, I said something along the lines of, I'm just learning how identity is fluid, right? And so it means that our identity, in one way or another, it will evolve, it will shift. We are most likely to kind of own up to one identity more than the other, because we are human beings. We have a lot of identities, like spiritually, gender wise, sexual orientation wise, a lot of things. And to me, being in one circumstance, like being in the US, there are some identities that I felt the need to kind of ensure that I want people to see this, I want people to know this. When they see me, I want them to acknowledge that I'm a woman, I want them to acknowledge that I'm educated, I want them to acknowledge that I'm all of this, right? And when I'm back in Kenya, I'm like, hey, I'm back in Kenya, I want people to acknowledge one, two, three things about me. Like I want them to see it from how I behave, from how I walk, from how I talk, right? And so all of this, I would say, it's just a process of us being, not really susceptible, but just being flexible enough to change, right? And change is not always bad, right? As long as you're not suppressing the inner you, you're good. So if you want to, if you really feel like you want to get into a space, right? Let's say a friendship group, let's say a professional field, like you maybe want to get into consulting. Consulting has its own language, right? There is how people talk, there's how people express their thoughts, right? It's okay to kind of shift how you normally talk a little bit to fit that. It's a matter of learning the language. It's a matter of, kind of being aware that you are this person in this circumstance, but also in this circumstance, you have to you have to be flexible enough to kind of make sense in a space, right? It's just the same thing with even language, like how if I'm around fellow Kenyans, I can freely speak Swahili, right? But at the same time, when I'm around my American friends, I have to speak English because I have to, kind of be aware that they don't know this language, right? And it's not normally viewed as something like bad or something like worth not doing. And so from my perspective, I view the fluidity of identity in the same way. First, you have to understand why you're exactly doing that, and secondly, you have to understand what is actually important to you. That there's these things that I am willing to maintain. I want them to always know this, like I'm an African, I am a woman, and period, right? But also I'm also a Christian, I'm also this and this and this and this and that, right? And so when I'm in a space, I want that to always be seen. But at the same time, if I'm in a space that people don't necessarily like talk about religion out of respect for other people, it's okay for me to not kind of force my religious belief on other people, and that's fine. If I'm in a space where discussions on I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but I'm just saying, like, as human beings, it is worth acknowledging ourselves, first of all, and knowing exactly what matters to us in terms of identity. And then, as we move into space, being flexible enough to kind of shift a little bit. And this doesn't take away your identity, it just makes you much, much more better in terms of people connecting with you. To shift a little bit or add on to how we, kind of present ourselves to these people, and so that our interactions are made better. And the book that I actually quoted over there, it was one of my classes, race in film, sorry. And I remember a very key thing that I learned about was how a certain girl was being forced by her mom to own up to her like her black identity, and she, on the other circumstance, wanted to be considered white. Like she wanted people to know, because she was mixed. She wanted people to see the white side of her. And so how she dressed, how she talked, how, how, like the kind of friends she wanted to be with, the kind of dolls she wanted to play were all like, stereotypically what the white people have, right? And so I would say, like, most people would be like, hey, I think she should have owned up to her black identity, tarara, tarara, tarara. But I feel, according to me, it's upon her. Like, literally, it's upon her. If she feels like it is for her own good, she's not like trying to impress the society, not trying to like impress other people, that she should like kind of own up to the other bit of her, which is truly her identity. She also has some like white blood in her, and so it's okay for her to do that, right? And even the mom, it's okay that she wants her to kind of own up to her roots and everything, but they shouldn't force her to follow this particular sort of identity simply because you find yourself in an environment. I have friends of mine, the same way we support people who are like, I was born in poverty, but I'm not gonna go, like, I'm not gonna leave a poor person, like I'm letting go of that. It's the same way we should be willing to support people who will come out and say, hey, growing up, I've always emphasized, like African being the main, identity that I hold on to. But right now, I'm not compromising my African. I want people to acknowledge my being a woman first before they see my being an African. And that's fine. The other person will be like, no, I want you to see me as an African first before you can see my, my gender. And that's all of that. It's okay. So I would say it's all just kind of points back onto you, why you're doing that and the need to do it. At times it's environment that demands that a little bit of shift. At times it's you becoming a better person. At times it's you building a brand for yourself.
Oh, fascinating. And how has your experience been like shifting now from Kenya
Mhm.
to uni, and how has that shift been? What have you learned since you got to the US, and what are the reflections that you've made since you've been here?
Definitely, like, okay, first of all, I think one thing that people know is that, oh, the US is a land of opportunities, right? And it's something that I have seen and I can attest that it's true. It's so true. There's a lot of opportunities that I know I wouldn't have gotten access to being in a Kenyan university, that I've gotten to access to by just the merit of being here. And I know that there is an aspect of my life that will never be the same just by me being here, not even going, not doing anything extra, not me, like being like super extraordinary. Just by being in this space, being a Davidson student, there is an aspect of my life that has already accelerated my growth towards, my professional career being better, towards me getting to understand where I stand globally. And so I think it's true, first of all. Yeah, it's so true. Everything that you've heard about the US, it's so true. But at the same time, it takes a lot of adaptation, especially for people like us, people who are not born in such, I would say, individualistic, in some sense, society. Back at home, I know you have heard of this. We don't really call it Ubuntu, but Ubuntu exists. Like, people know for sure that if I grow, my family is growing, my community is growing. I see it in my mother. She continuously insists, "Oh, you, my daughters, you're the people who will take me. You're the people who will take me out of this poverty." Right? I see it in my villagers. They're like, "Victoria, we believe that the first school bus will be in your name," and like I just see so much passion, so much interconnectedness in terms of, like, they want the best for me, and they're willing to sacrifice and ensure that I get that, get that. And it's something that I don't necessarily feel here. There are people, individuals, who will show up and be like, "Victoria, I love your story, I'm willing to support you in this way." But there's not that sense of, like, communally, when I'm walking around, people care about who I am, people care about my future, and they want to support me. I feel it from individuals, I don't feel it from everybody. I also see it even in my classes, right? Back at home, forming groups were very easy. Literally, people be like, "Hey, you don't know math, let's sit down and let's do it." Here, it's another experience. Just getting another person who you can sit down and study with. It's so hard. It has been a complete shift for me to just be able to have my own, like, study schedule and own up to it. It has been like a whole kind of struggle that I have learned to kind of like adapt through. And then I would say maybe the last thing would be how much you are needed to grow up. Like, I don't know how to explain. Like, by the fact that you are here, it means there's a different way in which people will perceive you back, like, from home, and how people here will also perceive you, and how you perceive yourself. There's just a whole shift, because back at home, by being here, people believe like you're to some sense. I don't. It might be different for every international student, but for me at least, and for most of my friends, it's like our families and our friends already see us as people who have, in some sense, made it in life. Like, there's like that feeling of you're doing better financially, that your network is grown. And some sense it's true, but I feel like there's just I wouldn't say a misunderstanding, but just an over expectation of just how much that is, or like how much that translates to in reality. And the people who are here, like, there are some friends of mine who will constantly try to I don't know, like, I wouldn't say be it's not being racist or not. I don't know how to say, like, they will say certain things that will directly point, trying, like, them trying to empathize with you because you are less, but they don't understand that you are equally just qualified to be in the spaces that you are. So you'll find somebody trying to explain basic things that you know how to do. You'll find people, I've heard of friends of mine talking of how, like, in group work, some of the ideas just being get a little bit dismissed, and like the kind of interactions they're getting is that of, "Oh, we understand that you're not at the same level of with us, and so we will take it easy on you." Well, in real sense, they are not. And so there's also that pressure to kind of fit into that, whatever they're putting you in this box of, "Oh, you're not like you still need time to, to get to our level, which more or less it could be true, but I wouldn't say it's upon them to kind of decide that for you. And then for me personally, there's like a whole shift of, oh, I've now gotten to learn that there's a career called consulting, and oh, I need to be like networking, and oh, I need to balance my academics and leadership, and looking for internship, and there's just a lot of things in my circles that I'm learning to kind of make space for and make time for in a healthy way, that I don't kind of overwhelm my body, overwhelm other aspects of my life, like friendship, and like mental health and self-care. And yeah, so I hope I answered your question. I feel like I've been everywhere, but I'm just trying
No,
to
yeah.
highlight what all of this look like for me.
No, yeah, you've perfectly answered the question because, like, such questions don't really have like a definitive answer. It has
Yeah.
like a whole aspect and layer of
Hmm.
answers. In
Yeah.
your another Instagram post of yours, you
Hmm.
wrote, "Being fast means standing in the gap for those who come before me and for those who will come after. It means holding on to and carrying the dreams of many people." So, could you please walk us through that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, to be honest, hmm, that statement I wrote, thinking like a lot of things were going through my mind as I wrote that statement down. And one of it was, I was thinking about my mom. She's one person, like when we sit down, she'll like just like she'll casually, like she'll say it as normal, like she'll tell me stories about her struggles, and I'll be like, deep down I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, so you dreamt of going to school and you're not able to go to school. Oh, and you dreamt of one day becoming this kind of a person and you're not able to because you never found the opportunity to. And so at the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, and so that's why you're normally supporting me and constantly telling me that you're praying for me to advance. It's because you also see a sense of you in me. And I see it in my sisters. I talk to them and they're like, oh, Vicky, you inspire me so much. I want to try and also get a B plus so that I can do this profession that I want to get into. Or, oh, Vicky, I saw this and this, and somebody told me this about you, and I'm like really, really impressed by whatever you're doing. I feel motivated to want to do more. And in one sense, yes, that is so good. It's so nice to see, it's so, there's just some joy in like being seen and loved, because when they communicate all of this, they are communicating from a sense of, I see you, I see whatever you're doing, and I love whatever you're doing, and it feels so nice. But at the same time, it adds on to you every single time that you think of doing something. You're thinking it not only for yourself but also for the people who see you and for the people who love whatever you're doing. And yeah, so basically that was whatever was going through my mind as I wrote that. And it's not just limited to my family. It's my friends from Madare. It's in the different organizations that I've been part of. An example of being Canada Madare Education Trust. I was their first girl to get an A minor. Um, I got an A minor. I was their first international sort of student, and once I did it, we had. I'm not taking any sort of how do I say, like, I don't want to take like the glory or anything, but I'm just saying, me being in that position of, oh, I was able to get a grade that nobody has ever gotten. We have had history of people getting A minus, A planes, actually, somebody being the best in their school. We have now another student who is now studying in Toronto. And it might or might not be related with them just seeing that it's possible. But I know a big part of it is for them just being in a position that they can envision that, oh, so even though I come from Madare, I still have a chance to do this, right? It comes from that point. And also, even my villagers back at home, I've heard of stories of parents being like, oh, please come talk to my daughter. She doesn't want to go to school because of one, two, three. And you sit down with this person and be like, hey, do you see me? There's no difference between me and you, right? And I've been in this position. I believe you can. And somebody takes that chance and steps out and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. If you can do it, and we share the same sort of, we went to the same school, we did this together, I believe it's possible. And so, yeah, like being fast to me, just being, it means being like some sort, like a reference point. Like if somebody doesn't know if it's possible and they need like some sort of reassurance to believe in themselves, they can look to that first person whoever did it.
Yeah, that's really, really inspiring because most people don't, most especially in Kenya, like when someone is going to apply, for example, like to if they have this dream to like go to this like amazing institution, they never usually have like this reference point
Mm-hmm.
because, like most people don't go to like amazing institutions like outside the country. They will have like people who inspire them maybe inside the country, like for example in amazing institutions in Kenya. But if they want to go an extra mile and like go to the States, for example, or in Europe, for example, they usually don't have that reference, point, and just really inspire you showing that and just showing someone that it's possible, and just telling them that they don't have an excuse. Honestly, they can they have to strive to be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like that really ties to you and you advocating for gender inequality, and how
Yeah.
gender inequality, you advocate for gender equality, and how
Yeah.
that, intersects with access to quality education.
Yeah.
So could you please walk us through your advocacy work?
Yeah, thank you. So I love this question. Thank you so much for bringing it up. And yeah, I feel like most people do not. And I think I might need to do a video or something with a post just to explain why I'm actually even, being so vocal about gender equality or being vocal about access to education. And I don't know who I add this from, but somebody once said that if you don't know the reason or like the purpose for your existence, then you just you need time. You need time to sit down and think about your life, because you will be going everywhere, every single direction. Because as
My
humans, we cannot solve everything, right? We cannot solve everything, but we can definitely do something.
my
And so
class teacher used to tell us to sit in a corner and think about our lives. So maybe he
fikiria
has
maisha
this.
yako.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, according to Angelica's class teacher, yeah. So, and I think that really hit me, right? And it made me to sit down, and I thought, I literally just thought about my own story, thought about the communities that I've been raised in, right? There are things that I love, 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 love about being a resident of Madare. There are things that I love and really, really appreciate about being, being born and partly raised in Winjo or in a Luo community. There are things that I appreciate about being raised in a family that, like we are not, that is not so privileged, in some sense. But at the same time, there are things that I believe we can do better at, right? And so nobody's going to do all of this for us, because the same thing I was saying, people who are in a position to help in terms of finances, they don't know about Madari, the intricacies of living in Madari. People who would think, like leaders who would think, oh, they're going to save us and everything, they do not know exactly what it means to be in a position where your identity as a woman kind of prevents you from getting in certain spaces, or your identity as a girl means your education comes to an end once you finish, high school, right? And so I saw all of this, and for me, I constantly, constantly, constantly pray to God, 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 please give me the wisdom to know how I can be of help. It starts from the problem that I see, and then getting insights about what I could do. And so I began advocacy a long time ago. I used to do it in small, small ways when I was even in high school. I remember I don't know if you saw the post about my friend, but we kind of date a little bit back. And one of the things that we did together was how's it called? Like an interview with KTN News. And we were like, I think maybe 14, 13. And I don't know where we would get that confidence to talk about girls' education and teenage pregnancy and, and all of this. But now that I think about it, at the back of my mind, I had a picture, a clear picture of the problem. And it wasn't based on statistics. It wasn't based on what the media has told me. It was based on, I have seen it. I have had it. I have experienced it. And I feel the need to do something, however small it is, to help, in that process of creating change, right? And so, going back to your question, the intersection of gender inequality and quality education, or access to quality education, I want to give a short story about how life back at home in my village, Winjo, is. So, if you guys, I don't know if you saw this documentary, but Citizen TV once talked about sex for fish, about
I
it
saw
being
it.
like,
I saw
yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 and And like that's like an example of what like economic inequality looks like back at home in my village. But I would say if you look at it from like a deeper like point, or like from a deeper perspective, you see that people being in this position where they're being abused to get something that they should be getting because it's trade and that's how it should be. It kind of points back with the kind of raising that they were given, right? I remember back at home, I lost my dad at a very young age, right? And so a big part of my life and a big, the father figure sort of part of raising came from my uncles. It came from like my teachers and other community members. So in some sense, I would say community played a very big role in defining me. And I remember those days so much. There's a story that, not a story, it's like a riddle we used to tell each other, or like we had it from people and we kind of continued passing it on. And the reader will be like, oh, I have a tree, I have an orange tree, and once it ripens and becomes yellow, I can come and pick it, but before I cannot, right? And like the answer to the riddle would be like, oh, the girl, like, it's your sister. Actually, it's not the girl, it's your sister, it's your sister. And so from the from being young, that's the kind of perspective that I used to have. Oh, I'm supposed to get to a point where I'm ripe, I'm yellow, and somebody takes me in. And I even remember this particular thought that, because I moved in with my aunt when I was like the age of 10 to Nairobi. I used to, like, when I was about to be taken, the kind of thought I was having was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet some rich man from Nairobi, and this guy's gonna take me in, he's gonna marry me, and I'm gonna come back and help my village because of this man's money. And these thoughts were not coming out of nowhere. They were coming from what I had seen from my cousins, from my aunts. That's how their life was. Anybody who made it out of our village and became a little bit rich was somebody, especially a girl, was somebody who got married to a man who was better off, right? And so that's how I thought it's done. Like, for me to make it out of this life, I have to get married to somebody, and this somebody will have money and they will help me and help my home. And so I go to Nairobi, go to Madare. Madare is also a place of its own challenges. There's a lot of teenage pregnancy, a lot of, poverty, intergenerational poverty. But at the same time, I was meeting people, like people who had pursued, their professions, teachers who were female, lawyers who will visit school and say, oh, I was a lawyer, I was raised here, and I did this, and now I do this thing, and I have come back to inspire. And I'll be like, wow. So this is actually possible, right? This is actually possible. It's very, very possible. And so it struck me that, oh, thinking about what my people at home they're doing, there's a cultural bit of it that tends to, just from the raising, like from the word go, they instill this sort of perspective in girls that, hey, for you to make it in life, your life depends on this person, this man. And if you don't do that, you are equally, your story is equally, forgotten in some sense. And you even see it, in even in burial rites. Like, I've witnessed some of our aunts, they get buried outside the compound. Like, if you died before getting married, they don't want you to be buried inside the compound, for many reasons, for many cultural reasons. But it kind of, it speaks a lot in terms of, what the kind of position that the society places us in. And so for my fight for education, my fight for gender equality comes from the point of view that I have been raised to see what education can do in terms of shifting perspectives, in terms of empowering people, right, to be the best versions that they can independently, right? As me, as Victoria, I can be empowered and I can pursue a profession, I can do something great, right? And it can be dependent or independent of a man, but I have that choice, right? And that's what has been my driving force for championing gender equality, for championing quality education for everybody, but especially for girls, because I am aware of the barriers that exist. I am aware of the retrogressive sort of cultural practices that exist, that still kind of raises girls to believe that they have to become minute to kind of compromise, for the males, or like they cannot do so well because they need to earn less than their husbands, or they cannot be too confident because it will it will scare away men and everything. And so, yeah, and maybe one thing I just want to mention this, because I've gotten these questions. I've gotten people who came arguing and be like, hey, as you talk about women, what about us men? What about boys? And I would constantly say that the moment we as human beings lose focus why there's need for something, then it's equally there's no need to do it, right? So the reason why we are championing for women, or championing for girls, and asking people to to support women, is because we acknowledge and we know that there are gaps, right, that are pushing women, right? Pushing women and pushing girls to be at this point, right? And these gaps are allowing, their male counterparts to be at this point. In other communities, it might be very, 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 intense, such as, female genital mutilation. It could be like, forced marriages, early marriages, and everything. But in other communities, it could be as simple as we are at home, right? My sister and I, we are both like in the same age group, but my sister will always be the person to cook, to clean vyombo, to do everything. And as for me, I have more time to spend with my friends. I have more time to study. And you see, it comes from there. Like from that point, there's inequality. I'm having less time. I cannot study. I cannot interact with my friends. I cannot do this and this and this and that. It will stem from the point of, oh, my brother is given the opportunity to actually even travel to conferences because he's a man, and me, because I'm a girl and I'm fragile, I'm not allowed to, right? And this is denying us the opportunity to build these connections from an early, from an earlier point of life. And so when we are saying support women, we are saying we are just trying, we're not saying we want to replace men in the position that they are. No. And we are not saying we are fighting men. No. We are saying we want to remove barriers that are constantly trampling on girls and trampling on women, telling them to limit themselves, or like to prevent them from being the big ambitious people that they are. God created us uniquely to become powerful and powerful vessels of honor, people who can serve in a way, in different perspective. Others will be presidents, others will be women representatives, others will be doctors, others will be, nannies. Like there are different reasons why we are created. And so there's no good reason why we as human beings should be the deciding force to what a person gets to be. Yeah, we're removing all these barriers so that men and women can be in a position where I can equally just look at a man and be like, hi, comrade, we're in the same level and we are growing and we are becoming better. And Chimamanda said this: if we support women, if we support girls, we are equally removing the burden on men, so that, as you go to work, you don't have to think about, oh my God, I have to do everything, pay for my wife food, pay for the child, tarara, do all of this. You can be guaranteed that you now have a partner who also earns income and they can contribute, right? And by that, you're able to even give back to the community better. So for anybody who is unsure, especially for the men who are unsure about why they should support women, they should just think about why we are, like, what are we championing for? What we're championing for is for us to remove these barriers. It's not to replace anybody in the authoritative state. It's not to bring them down. It's rather to just help uplift women so that they can get to that point where we can look into one another and say, hey, I feel like we are in this together and we are partners, right? Nobody's another person's servants or another person's like superior, and that sort of relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that comes from a point of nuance and you just being in your lived experience and understanding that, someone else may not be able to understand that nuance involved, and that's your driving force. And one last question, Victoria, that I usually ask my guests is, what would you change or improve in the education system?
And by this, do you mean like general education or like the Kenyan system
You
specifically?
can do both.
Okay. I think I'm gonna start with the Kenyan system, like particularly. And the one thing that I would probably change is the constant glorification of doing well academically and nothing else. I was somebody who, as I went to high school, in primary school, first of all, I used to be like very, very not good athletically, but I would like be very passionate about going to walking race. I would do it, and at times I would win, at times I wouldn't win, but I could see myself in that sort of shoe that it's okay for me to do so well and be the president of the school, but also go for sport days and represent my schools, right? Going to high school, that wasn't the case. The teachers themselves constantly said, no, limit the kind of involvement you are in. You cannot do drama because it takes so much time. You cannot do this because it's gonna, kind of compromise your ability to participate in like to focus on books, right? And even our parents themselves, they will tell you that, yeah, do this, but no, 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 don't get it. To them it's a distraction. But now that I'm in a different sort of institution, a liberal arts sort of education system, and I'm seeing the amazing things that people are doing outside education. Like people are, they are doing so well in terms of theater. They're winning awards because of a talent that was nurtured in them. I'm like, actually, it's okay if we just teach people how to do a fine balance, right? Right? Like, hey, you can go for this competition, but this is how you sit down and ensure that your education or like your academics are not being affected by this. I know the government in some way, CBC kind of allows for that, but I would still highly, highly emphasize, especially for our teachers and for our um parents, instead of telling your children to just focus in whatever took them to school, encourage them to try different things, but also kind of walk them through how they can maintain a fine balance, because in real life, that's how life is. They're going to walk out into this world where there are opportunities left, right, center, and you don't want them to be confused and like just be fixed in a single bubble, right? We want them to know how they can balance all of this, and so that they reap the best out of the opportunities that will come their way. um Another thing, actually, I think it was on LinkedIn or something like that, but somebody was talking about not allowing your profession to be like your cage or like your prison sort of thing. And I think that really spoke a lot to me, right? That we are human beings. We are meant to, to try different things. We are meant to be, um, I don't know, multi-talented, multi-skilled, right? And
Mhm.
so that it's okay that, Victoria, I'm doing like, economics and I'm doing great in it, but at the same time, I can show up to spaces and I can dance, and people will be, excited. I remember the professor, I can't remember her name, the one who went even to the Olympics to do like the break dance. I was like, wow, God, you're rocking it. That's how we should be, like, be in a position where we can pursue passions, right? We can pursue professions, where we can even change professions, where we can find even a blend with other professions. And I can be a consultant in during the day, but I'm a podcaster in the evening, right? Where I am doing all of this, but there's just that sense of freedom that I'm okay, and it's okay for me to try these different sort of routes, right? Yeah, that's the one thing that I would encourage. But at the same time, I understand why parents are insisting and why teachers are insisting that students have to like fully focus, and they have to like lock in and don't get distracted by these extracurricular activities. It's because of the kind of system that we have, right? We have the cutoff point sort of thing. The government gets to decide for you which kind of course you can do and everything. I think there should be a better way of going about that. Literally, there's need for our academic sort of um ministry to just think through how they can help students be people who they want to be, and support them, not show them what they want to be and force them to be. We have had cases of people doing certain courses, graduating, and then in the long run they're like, no, the degree even did not help me. But in real sense, if it was a degree that you are passionate about, I'm so sure you would have come up with a plan. If you couldn't find the job, you would have started thinking about how you can be creating that job for other people. And that's whatever I said at the beginning of the interview. Education should be finding you at the point where you are, like you're already somebody, and just building upon that, not forcing you to be certain things simply because you're good in one thing, even though you're not passionate about it. In terms of the American system, or like whatever I'm experiencing at Davidson, I think they're doing so well, and especially in acknowledging that people are different. There's a lot of emphasis on, people have learning disabilities and they are accommodated for that. That is something that I really hope they can also even think about back at home, because now that I think of it, I'm like, there's some of my classmates actually that could be having, learning disabilities, and they just needed an extra sort of support, through that struggle. And it wasn't their fault that, it took them 3 hours instead of an hour, to read a book, or, and all of that. And now that I'm in this space, I'm seeing it from that perspective. And it's something that I really wish our government and our educational system can also borrow from, just being able to, see students as, as diverse as they are, as unique as they are. Here in the US, the one thing that I would really recommend is, let me think, actually, I haven't really thought about that. Oh yeah, I would say that let them borrow from the system in Kenya, the collectivistic sort of way of learning, right? Where a system, I don't know how it can be achieved, but having a sort of community where people feel okay to form groups, feel okay to be like, hey, do you want to study together? Or hey, I'm struggling. Let's, kind of work together. I feel like even the group works that professors give here feel like it's extra work, extra pressure, instead of like, relieving that burden of, oh, I don't have to do this myself. People are actually even anxious to participate in, group work. And I don't think that's how it should be. Learning should be based on, my professor gave me this, I got this, you got this got this, and like, oh, now I have a central sort of way, I have my own way of looking at this thing. I have, I have built knowledge, I've built skills, but I also have different perspectives to kind of, draw onto. So yeah, I would really recommend that, just find ways in which you can build a collectivistic sort of learning environment for students. And yeah, and continue supporting students to pursue their careers. Like, I really appreciate the resources that we're getting in terms of go for conferences, connect with people, let us look at your resume, send, do this, and do that. It really means a lot, especially for students who are first generation, who don't have anybody to look up to in terms of like careers and everything.
All right, Victoria, thank you so much for all your insights. I am truly inspired by what you do, by how much you empower people back at home here in the US. And I, pray for you like to just forge on and just keep on inspiring more people as you've inspired many of us. I just love going through your posts and just knowing that there's someone out there, who is committed to quality education, who is committed to gender equality, and is actually doing the thing to make the thing happen. So thank you so much for being in this podcast, and thank you so much for existing in this world. We need more of you.
Thank you, Angelica. I truly appreciate you, and for coming up with this platform. This really means a lot. I know it's gonna reach even more people, and that's what's important. As much as my circle knows what I'm doing, it's also important to kind of put the word around it. It's through people like you who will ask these questions, and that enables us to speak out our minds, share our experiences, and people get inspired, people get challenged to even become better. So thank you so much. I also appreciate you for being you. Appreciate you for all the effort you're making to kind of bring ideas and bring conversation, get conversation started. I also pray for blessings upon you, that whatever force is sustaining you to continue doing this, let it never run dry. And also find favor, with your academics, find favor with people who you will meet in your journey. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Angelica.
much.
Thank you.